This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, this is the Kever of Rabbi Yaakov Yehoshua, the Baal Pnei Yehoshua. So we're standing on Admas Kodesh. Pnei Yehoshua was born in the year 1680, and he lived to be 75 years old till the year 1756. He was born in Krakow, and on his mother's side, he was the grandson of Rabbi Yeshua Heschel. We were Zoicha. We have my good friend Dr. Neil Kowal and his son Misha from Boston and England, respectively. Last year we were Zoicha, this time to be at the Kever of the Maginei Shloimeh, who was on the Pnei Yeshua's mother's side. Maginei Shloimeh wrote a commentary on Rashi to defend Rashi from all the kashas of Tosfos. So the Pnei Yeshua, his name was Rabbi Yaakov Yehoshua, had the name Yehoshua after his grandfather, the Maginei Shloimeh. Now, the Pnei Yeshua was married to Leah Landau, and in 1703, there was an explosion of gunpowder that destroyed their home. His wife was killed in this explosion. His mother was killed in the explosion. His daughter Gittel was killed in the explosion. The Pnei Yeshua laid there in rubble and the debris for hours and hours and hours. It looked hopeless. And at that point in time, as the Pnei Yeshua writes in his Hakdama, he made a neder to Ribono Shel Olam. He says, yes, I learned, but from now on I'm going to commit to learn Sugyos Hashas Upoiskim Be'ion. And he was menader that if he gets out, he's going to spend many leilos on Inyan Echad. And that's from there, the Pnei Yeshua, all of a sudden he writes, supernaturally a path appeared, he climbed out, and from that moment on, he dedicated himself to the Ion HaTorah and the great Pnei Yeshua as we have it today. In the Sefer HaPeles, which is a journal, they bring that the Kotzker writes, before the Pnei Yeshua wrote the commentary of Pnei Yeshua, he went through the Shas 36 times. Shailas Atshuvas Avnei Tzedek. He brings that he heard from the Chassam Sofer that since the Rashba, there was no Perush on Shas like the Pnei Yeshua. Until the Rashba, we never had anything like the Pnei Yeshua. The Kozhnitz Magid says that Ruach HaKodesh was Moifia in his Beis HaMedrash. Chida writes, when he came to Frankfurt, he stayed in the home of the Pnei Yeshua, and he looked at him, Upanov Kemalach Elokim, Umareu Kemalach Elokim. Pnei Yeshua looked like an angel. In fact, the story goes, in the Sefer Likutei Shoshana, brings down that Pnei Yeshua was once walking on a deserted street here in Frankfurt. That street maybe we were walking down moments ago. And he was wondering, how come nobody's outside today? And then he realized why, because he bumped into a lion. So Pnei Yeshua uncovered his face. The lion saw the face of the Pnei Yeshua, and the lion went away. The Pnei Yeshua mamish looked like a malach like him. By the way, the Chida writes in the Magal Tov, Chida recorded his travels in the Sefer Magal Tov, that when he went to the house of the Pnei Yeshua, he was talking in the Pnei Yeshua and learning, and also they discussed a certain matter that I'm not going to say right here, I'll tell you on the bus. And I'll tell you why I'm not going to say it here. And the Pnei Yeshua was saying Divrei Torah, Divrei Torah, Divrei Torah, Divrei Torah. And finally, after one Dvar Torah, the Pnei Yeshua's wife chimed in. She was a big Mulumeda. She said, that's a good one. So Pnei Yeshua says, Baruch Hashem, I was able to say something good. That's what the Chida records in the Magal Tov, that his visit to the house of the Pnei Yeshua. So this was the Pnei Yeshua's rabbinic career. He was a Rav in Tarlo, in Lisko, in small Galician towns. 1717, he becomes the chief rabbi of Lemberg after the Chacham Tzvi left Lemberg. Then he comes to Berlin. In 1731, he rubbed a certain balabas the wrong way, which happens if you're a rabbi, and it happened to the Pnei Yeshua. He then became the Rav in Metz. He became the Rav in Frankfurt. But the Pnei Yeshua came out against Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz. And because of that, he had to leave his Rabbanus in Frankfurt. They chased him out of the town. So he had no job. He had to leave in 1750. He came to Worms. They called him back to Frankfurt. He could never regain his position in Frankfurt because of his opposition to the Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz. In the year 1746, he was nifter at 75 years old. Now, interesting. Pnei Yeshua left in his tzava that when he passes on, nobody could be maspid him. Comes the Noid Yehuda at his levaya, and the Noid Yehuda was maspid him. Why? says since he's Rabban shel kol Pnei Agoyla, he's the Rebbe of Klal Yisrael, even though he said not to be mased him, that's personally we're not mased him. But the loss that he suffered, the loss that Klal Yisrael feels is irreplaceable, and we need to be mased him. So in the Chuvas of the Tshuva Me'ava, Rabbi Lezer Flakos, we were there last year on the last day of our trip in Prague. Rabbi Lezer Flakos explains in Siman Kuf Ayin Daled that he saw in the writings of the Moharal Fishless, who writes in the name of his father. He quotes a very interesting Gemara, the Gemara in Sanhedrin on Daf Samaches, that when Rabbi Lezer Hagadol died, Rabbi Akiva would gash himself and cut himself until he was bleeding. So the Gemara asks, how is he allowed to do that? So the Gemara says, he cried out, Avi, Avi, Rechev Yisrael u'parashav, Harbe mois yeshli v'yein shulchani lehartzaisan. I have a lot of money, I have no one to exchange my money. Rashi explains, I have a lot of questions, nobody can answer them. Says Tosfos, listen to this Tosfos, you're not allowed to cut yourself for a mess. How was Rabbi Akiva allowed to cut himself for a mess? The answer is, since he had so many questions and nobody could answer it, the loss was so irreplaceable, there's no mitzvah of mitzvah l'kayim divrei ames when it comes to Gadol b'Yisrael. There's no Isur of V'ser l'nefesh lo yaseh, because when it comes to Rabban shel kol Pnei Agoyla, all of these Isurim are waived l'chveidan shel Torah. Now listen to this. See, he was nifter in the year 1756. So he was born in 1681 in the year MS. He was nifter in the year 1756 in the year Yosher. So they said the Pnei Yehoshua is noilad be'emes v'niftar be'Yosher. Pnei Yehoshua was born in the year MS and he passed away in the year Yosher. Now it's hard to. We could read this. This Matzeva. It says Poi Tamnu V'ganos Ishal Ekim Kadosh Atar Sefaras Yisrael Rosh Gulas Ariel Ma'ar Hagoyla Achasid Va'anav Rechev Yisrael Parashav Yachid B'doira Asher Her Pnei Kol Hagoyla B'chiburav Bala Mechaber Sefer Pnei Yehoshua. So if I could tell you just one Dvar Torah that Pnei Yehoshua writes, Moshe Rabbeinu davened how many tefillos? How many tefillos did Moshe daven to enter Eretz Yisrael? 515. What's the significance that he davened 515 tefillos? When did Moshe start davening? When the Rebbe Shem started engaging him again, which was on what day of the year? What day of the year did the Rebbe Shem start to be miyachid with Moshe Rabbeinu? Tu B'Av. And Moshe Rabbeinu's final day was Zayin Adar. Says the Heilige Pnei Yehoshua, if you make a cheshbon, 3 tefillos a day, from Shachris and Tu B'Av, going until his last day, Zayin Adar, it's 515 tefillos. It's not coincidentally Moshe davened 515 tefillos. Those were the number of available tefillos from Tu B'Av until Yom Achron, Zayin Adar, says the Pnei Yehoshua, Zchusa Yagein Aleinu.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.